Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty Season 4, Episode 6. It's back! Never Ricking Morty, aka the train that definitely left the station, then derailed and crashed through all of our dreams. I did my best to explain what was and wasn't canon in this episode with Rick and Morty insiders on our after show Rick'splained. Go check it out. But here I'm gonna go even deeper to point out the subtle animation jokes and Easter eggs and clever details hidden throughout the episode. You know, the reasons we still believe in our animated Lord and Saviors, even if they don't believe in us. This episode takes place on the story train, conducted by the story lord, who wants to drain Morty and Rick of their narrative imagination to keep the train chugging along. Each part of the train is a metaphor for anthology storytelling as a concept. The short standalone stories within a meta-framing device. The device in this case is the train. On this train, Rick recognizes its structure as within Dan Harmon's story circle formula. All of the events on and off the train happen, but to toy versions of these characters since they're all on a toy train. The Morty and Rick in the final scene are canon, we think, as canon as Rick and Morty can be, leaving us with the cynical moral of buying merch, which is really the fuel that keeps Rick and Morty as a vehicle chugging along.
You did it. You went into a store, an actual honest-to-God store, and you bought something.
The episode's title, Never Ricking Morty, is of course a nod to the Never-Ending Story, the 80s movie about a story within a story that, I will repeat, drowned Artax in a swamp. Really, I would say the episode's conceit is closer to Bong Joon-ho's film Snowpiercer, in which the survivors of a post-apocalyptic society all live aboard a fantastical train, which is really a Marxist allegory for a capitalist class structure. I guess you could also say it's similar to Infinity Train, but if you've seen Snowpiercer, you'll know this is closer to Snowpiercer. In the first bar car, the beer taps include a killer IPA for Corbopulous Michael from the Morty Night Run episode. The other tap is Viper, a snake head, maybe like the Snake Planet from the previous episode, Rattlestar Rick Lactica, which only came out like 5 months ago, but feels like 5 goddamn years ago. On each table are dispensers for brass knuckles. One of the drink tanks has a creature floating in it, and there's a wanted poster for 3 million schmeckles in the background. The ticket taker is a nod to characters like the creepy conductor in the Polar Express, a movie whose last stop is an uncanny valley hell where Robert Zemeckis believes animated characters should have no souls. Anyway, this character is voiced by Dan Harmon. The assassin recalls a time Rick attacked his planet, and notice how in his tale, Rick only speaks via fart.
Who are you? How did you reach my sanctum? All right, this is going in circles.
Later on, the assassin admits...
Anyway, he tells a different version of the story where I start crying or something.
Yeah, they're playing with the unreliable narrator trope, where the reality of the tale reflects the bias of the narrator, one of the many anthology storytelling elements that come up this episode. Similarly, the episode doesn't follow the first narrator, but leaves him behind, following the audience as another rando chimes in.
I'll take his turn. Here's why I'm going to kill Rick Sanchez.
You guys have fun with this.
Dissolve to a clam-shaped sun rising over a giant beach.
This clam woman uses the same cringy screenplay language as the lighthouse keeper in Look Who's Purging Now.
Fade in. Exterior. Unnamed city. Day. The hustle and bustle is a symphony of progress. We pan past windows, each of which contain a different story.
And she kind of foreshadows the ending of this episode. Sunrise on a beach, with Story Lord and Jesus walking along that beach, which itself is a nod to the 2 sets of footprints Jesus story. It was then I was carrying you. Goomby's Christmas Rick tale ends with him left alone outside in the cold, similar to Jerry in the Season 3 episode, but also holiday movies like Home Alone and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, both of which have tragic scenes with characters without families freezing to death in the Chicago winter. Sadly, the 2 sets of footprints for Goomby meant no one was carrying him. Morty's disguise is an assassin voiced by prolific voice actor Tara Strong. She meets Rick's exes, which include a female Yoda, maybe Yaddle, a 3-boobed alien, an octopus with a captain hat and a garter belt, an Amazon woman. Leah appears to be a white witch figure. Her planet has a dire wolf, and family includes sisters who appear to be based on Anna and Elsa from Frozen, also maybe Aldrich from Dark Souls, and some idiot who's just the concept of time. Love this guy. We learn that these 2 assassins are actually Rick and Morty in disguise. Rick knows from the moment Morty feels his own boobs, which make a great balloon deflate sound effect.
How did you not recognize me? Didn't you?
Rick discovers the train's truth as a literal story device, comparing this overwritten anthology trope to past clip show episodes like Interdimensional Cable.
If we wanted one-offs, we'd do Interdimensional Cable, not some uptight, overwritten.
The tickets please guy goes shirtless.
Jesus, the tickets please guy is cut. He's got those things. What do you call them? The gutters. Morty gross. That's what people call them. Gross people.
Not to swim too deep into this gutter, but just so you know, gutters is where the V shape is. The writers admitted finding this term super gross and a bit confusing.
You're gutter.
Whose is being guttered? Your own? Where is it guttering to? Disgusting.
Also, notice that Morty says Jesus he's cut, maybe unintentionally invoking cut Jesus in this episode's finale. Tickets Please Guy is another story trope, of course, a video game avatar in the Blips and Chitz arcade, much like Roy, A Life Well Lived in Morty Night Run. As is typical in those kind of stories, dying in the virtual reality or in the dream leads to death in the surface reality. Horrible, horrible death. Back on the train, the oxygen they breathe is continuity, since story continuity episode to episode is really the basic element that maintains order on the series. The story police give another meta-narrative trope. Everything we just saw is actually a what not to do training video in which continuity has exploded. So when Morty and Rick pop up from nowhere with Rick's crushed leg healed, they're using the rules of anthology storytelling and discontinuity to respawn in a new car. Rick breaks down the episode structure using a parody of Dan Harmon's 8-step story circle. I go much more into that in the Rick Explained episode, again, check it out. When he says pay a heavy price, he points to the threshold right at step 7, referring to the threshold between the take and the return step, typically when a character dies. In this episode, that's exactly when Rick passes out. Notice the recycling bin by the desk. This could be a joke about how the writers are kind of recycling the anthology concept from Interdimensional Cable and Morty's Mind Blowers, but while doing something new with it.
This is just a structural guide. We're obviously gonna impart our own style.
And then Rick hits close to home.
You watch videos of people on YouTube reacting to YouTube.
Fair enough, in the future I'll know better than to assume canon from Rick and Morty YouTube trailers. Notice the Tickets Please guy floating around outside.
How is he still breathing? He's suspended in disbelief, slowly dying while living out an alternative non-diegetic reality. Jeez, what a horrible way to die. You don't know the half of it.
I love this wordplay. Suspended in disbelief, non-diegetic. Yeah, they're more story structure terms about audience assumptions of the truth of a reality. And it isn't just a joke about the half body. They're laughing at the idea of a slow, horrible death in a meta reality, being aware of your fictitious existence, which is exactly what Rick is experiencing on this show. Bird Person returns in a musical duet with Rick, which ends up being a story pitch by the Broadway musical car. There are posters for past Rick and Morty musical moments. Tiny Rick from Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, Get Swifty, Morty and Fart from Goodbye Moonman. The characters are all in costume. One's Rum Tum Tugger from Cats, the Phantom of the Opera, the girl from Hairspray, the donkey from Shrek, and I want to say Tom Collins from Rent. Though some of you bigger musical heads may call me out on that. I don't know, we'll see. And then there are more posters in the background, more joke musicals, The Sound of Rick, and then just Rick designed like the Cats poster, and Meeseeks of the Opera with a Meeseeks box on it. As always, the animators recycle background alien designs. As Floaty Bloodman coats Blips and Chitz, you can see one of the blue ape aliens from Whirly Durly. Floaty Bloodman inspires another meta-framing device with a stoner incel cult follower believing all of existence is within Floaty Bloodman's nightmares. This pig-nosed race will appear in next week's Prometheus episode. Notice the weird fluid they're vaping, and when they exhale, some kind of organism floats out. Perhaps that will be the origin of the infection of that coming episode, and we are looking here at Patient Zero. Yeah, it's not easy finding these details, folks, but just like how Rick Sanchez stays sharp with his drink of choice, so do I! Thanks to Bang Energy for sponsoring this video. Every can of Bang is 16 ounces. That's right, there's no wimpy 12-ounce cans here. This contains 300 milligrams of caffeine, it's sugar-free, has 0 calories. And it tastes great. This is their peach mango flavor. It tastes like you wrapped a blindfold around your head and you did a taste test between a peach and a mango, and somehow it's both. Peach and a mango had sex, had a kid, and you're drinking into Bang, and your life is better! There are over 20 different flavors to choose from. Check out Bang on Instagram. You can get 25% off your order at bang-energy.com when you use the code NewRockstars25. I gotta dive back into the peach and mango pit.
Yeah, boy.
There you can buy cans of Bang Energy, including their sweet tea, keto coffee flavors. You can also get clothing, fitness supplements, all kinds of stuff to be your best Bang self. Thanks again to Bang Energy for sponsoring this video. Get 25% off at bang-energy.com using the code NewRockstars25 and follow the inventor of Bang on Instagram at bangenergy.ceo. Okay, Rick gives Morty's suit a ticking clock purposely to motivate him, which is another meta comment about how stories' artificial ticking clocks are inserted simply to propel the hero into action. Morty stammers a crappy story with scorpions. On the wall behind them is a photo of Morty Jr., but because Morty's bad story meshes too well with the theme of anthology stories being crappy and low stakes, plan fails. So Rick tries to break the train with something they would never do on this show.
Morty, do you know what the Bechdel test is?
The what?
For God's sake, Morty, the formula for measuring female agency in a story proposed by lesbian cartoonist Allison...
Why is lesbian part of her job title?
Oh, now you're progressive?
The Bechdel test is Alison Bechdel's feminist media critique pointing out how rare it is to see a scene in which two named female characters talk to each other about something other than a man. This is the kind of thing that's been a bit over-applied and a bit misconstrued. Some critics calling it a reductive way to form properly progressive but flat stories, but I don't think it was ever meant to be a rule that every movie has to follow. Really, here it's just a commentary about how Dan Harmon himself regrets trying too hard to be an ally in the past, with season 1's Gazorp storyline, which he called his least favorite episode because the episode's meaning just got lost. That is why Morty's overly simple story with Beth and Summer breaks this train. He's using them as puppets to try to pass the Bechdel test, but nothing more than that. And this whole Bechdel test is from Morty's super uninformed point of view. That's why the scorpions have bows, and the women use their mystic menstruation power to beat them. And why Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg shows up to congratulate them, though Morty doesn't know her name. And of course, Rick, who's equally ignorant, calls this
a feminist masterpiece.
Like the climax of Snowpiercer, they arrive in the engine room to face the conductor. In this case, it's a story lord, voiced by Paul Giamatti. He mocks Rick's burped, semi-improvised dialogue, and also strips down to some goaters. And he admits he commits a double beat, which is a writer term for a redundant scene or a bit. His gray beard and wavy hair, I don't know guys, might be based a bit on Dan Harmon's look. The fight spills in and out of canon, with Morty and Rick respawning in more tropey meta narrative scenarios, a Matrix-style fluid pod, a Jacob's Ladder scenario, which is later revealed to be a pill from Rick suggesting MK Ultra-style hallucinogenic testing. Rick, meanwhile, wakes up in a college lab setting. He's a quantum physics professor. Notice the wormhole diagrams on the board. This episode, remember, also reminds us a few times that Rick invented portal tech and that he doesn't go on linear journeys because he hops in and out of portals. Perhaps this here is a past memory from his early research as a young man inventing portal tech that he's slipping into. But when Morty stabs him with a bayonet, he proves this to be another non-canonical situation. Storylord drains them for their narrative energy to power the train's marketability, broad appeal, and relatability, the artificial measures of story quality, signaling to us right now that this whole train is just a commercial product. He mentions wanting to break past the fifth wall, but not to the fact that this fourth wall has already been broken through. And then Rick loses some big fan episode ideas. The return of Aberdolf Linkler from season 1, an epic endgame style battle with Snowball versus a cat army, Rick tackling Phoenix Person, Summer and Tammy in a lightsaber duel, and then a huge stand down at the sanitation plant in the Citadel, with Rick and Morty facing an army of Ricks and Meeseeks male Gazorpians, all led by Evil Morty, eye patch and everything, with what looks like a purple Sith Lord version of Mr. Poopybutthole. Rick's solution is to pray to bring in Cut Jesus, which is another joke about how Harmon's story circle and the Joseph Campbell monomyth it's based on are all derivations of the greatest story ever told, the story of Christ, and how escalating to divine intervention grinds every story to a halt, including this train. Rick gets visited by VeggieTales characters and Biblesaurus and Crossy. I love how Crossy's crown of thorns includes a little trickle of blood. They trap Storylord in that religious reality, but they discover that the train handle is just a toy piece. It's got a barcode on the inside, and its control panel is a sticker, because the ultimate meta-narrative twist. It's all a Saint Elsewhere style reveal that the events are all in a child's toy. Here it's a train that Morty bought in the Citadel of Rick's gift shop. So this freewheeling off-the-rails story that we just saw is actually on a fixed loop, designed to just sell products to consumers.
I'm so proud of you. I only wish you could have bought more. I love buying things so much more.
This take was made even more meta by the fact that the commercials that played during this broadcast included Rick and Morty selling Pringles and Wendy's. Turns out the fifth wall is the one between the show and the commercial break, and Rick and Morty somehow smashed through it. Storylord and Jesus walk the beach, yeah, like that famous story.
A Sumerian god named Yah and a Mesopotamian god named Way.
This statement is based on some truth, since anthropologists do believe that the ancient Hebrew notion of Yahweh was derived from the earlier Sumerian figure of El. Jesus escapes.
Father of omens, give me blood beyond sight.
I love that Jesus' power works just like Lion-O from Thundercats.
Sword of omens, come to my hand. Oh!
Rick yells at Morty to serve their corporate overlords by a new train.
I guess I'll return it.
Return? Are you insane? Did you hear nothing I said? Buy another one, Morty. Consume, Morty. Nobody's out there shopping with this Virus.
Aha, a virus joke. Notice that Rick's mouth didn't match the word exactly, probably because Justin Roiland dubbed in this topical audio after animation was completed. The post-credit scene is a commercial for the story train, which might be a nod to the meta-existential post-credit scene after Community Season 6, or Community the Board Game, narrated by Dan Harmon.
I got it. The whole show was happening inside this game.
Life may pass by while we ignore or mistreat those close to us. Those close to us may be those watching. Those people may want to know I love them, but I may be incapable of saying it. Contains pieces the size of a child's esophagus.
What was your favorite joke from this Rick and Morty episode? Comment down below, and again, check out our after show Rick'splained, where Tommy and I try to analyze this episode with the voice of Mr. Goldenfold himself, Brandon Johnson. Follow me at Erik Voss, follow New Rockstars, and subscribe for more Rick and Morty YouTube reactions to YouTube videos. I'm on that train.